Morning. Good morning. It's great to be back at NATO with our allies. And this week, the UK government published our Strategic Defence Review. This is our plan to put warfighting readiness at the heart of what we do. Warfighting readiness to deter the growing threats. It's our plan to seize the defence dividend of increased defence spending to grow jobs across the UK and across Europe. It's our plan to innovate at a wartime pace so that we fast-track the best kit into the hands of our warfighters, and most important, it's a plan to put NATO first and to step up on European security. This is a plan for a safer Britain, a stronger NATO, and that's what I'll be discussing with defence ministers this morning at the conference. Thank you very much.
What does NATO need to achieve? So, good morning. This will be an important meeting of defense ministers. It is the last big meeting we will have before the summit in The Hague, and today is really key because we will decide on the capability targets. And this is an important building block to decide on the money we're going to spend in the coming years on defense. So I'm really excited about today's meeting. It's my prediction that we will agree on these capability targets. Of course, we will discuss many other issues, but this is a key building block up to The Hague to make sure that then in The Hague we will have a commitment on more spending, on more production, of course our support for Ukraine. And speaking about Ukraine, we will have a meeting with the Council, the NATO-Ukraine Council, with the defense ministers during lunch. We will also have, of course, the defense minister of Ukraine visiting, Rustem Umerov, and of course Kaja Kallas. She is the High Representative of the European Union. So it will be a packed agenda today, and I hope to see you at the end for the closing press conference. But now I have time for a few questions, but again, all the time at the end of the day.
Secretary General, one question. Can you mention more detailed capability targets that NATO has to fulfill to successfully deter in defense?
Yes, so what we will do today is to decide what do we need to make it, for us to be able to, whenever we would be attacked, to defend ourselves. And by being able to defend ourselves, not being attacked. So, as you know, to prepare for war, spend more, and when you are really prepared for war, you will not be attacked. That will be a considerable extra investment, and this is why I predict that in The Hague we will decide on a much higher spending target for all the nations in NATO. Because we have to invest in our air defense systems, we have to invest in our let's say long-range missiles, we have to invest in our maneuverable land formations, command and control systems. All of this has to happen. And these mean huge investments. We need all over NATO territory. And by the way, doing this will also equalize what we are spending with what the United States is spending. We, Canada and Europe, equalizing with the US. And we know this is important because we want a fairer NATO where all our allies spend the same.
What are the gaps?
Are you disappointed that the visit of your United States colleagues is brief than
No, I'm not, because it is not about the number of visits or how many meetings, etc. It is about the commitment, and the commitment of the US and Pete Hegseth and the President to NATO, to our joint commitments is ironclad.
One of the ministers we heard from yesterday said that 2032 is simply too late as a deadline. Doesn't he have a point?
Well, we will have some debates over the coming weeks, and that's good, because in the end this is a democratic alliance. We will decide by unanimity. And by the way, I will put out my proposal on the defense spending and the new plan this afternoon during the press conference. What I need today is this last building block, the capability targets. As they will be agreed today, I will then inform you about my proposals for the summit.
What are the gaps?
Some NATO officials are calling this day an historic day due to the pledges that are being made on capabilities.
This is historic, yeah.
Is it even more important than the Hague summit? I mean, today you're setting what
A very good question. I'm so happy that you asked that question, because sometimes people are thinking The Hague will discuss a percentage of GDP spent on defense, as if this is something we pluck from the air. That is not true. What we will decide in The Hague, what we will spend on defense going forward, the new defense investment plan, of course, is rooted in what we need in terms of the hard capabilities. So that's why it's so important that today we decide on the capability targets. From there you will assess the gaps we have, not only to be able to defend ourselves today, but also 3, 5, 7 years from now. And all these investments have to be financed. And that is what we will do in The Hague. So this is really a two-step approach. Today, the capability targets, that will inform you, give you the routing, let's say the basis to build on, to have a strong discussion on spending, which is then rooted in the decisions we take today with the defense ministers. Last question, then I'll see you this afternoon.
Please concretely say what gaps does NATO have?
Well, I mentioned a few, but of course we are not going to make Putin or any other country which might want one day to try something against us more wiser than he is today. But I mentioned a few big ones. The air defense systems, the maneuverable land formations, long-range missiles, command and control systems, etc., etc. We will meet later today. Thank you so much.
So, good morning. As you know, we have one very important decision today, which is the approving the capability targets. For me, it's also linked to the discussion and preparation for the NATO summit. And we have to agree on the new defense spending pledge, because I take it very simply. When we want to have these capability targets to be fulfilled, then we need to agree on the 5% in 5 years. We don't have time for 10 years. We don't have time even for 7 years, to be honest, because when we take the capability targets, when we calculate these capabilities to the investments, then we will see that 5% is something we need to achieve. The discussion, of course, is inside of that, or in that 5%, something additionally to these defense spendings we know today. It's a matter of discussion. We are ready for this, but nevertheless, we have to agree on that. We have to show the unity. We have to show that we have everything we need to defend our countries and protect our people. So this is the most important. Of course, I would like to see also that during the summit we will have Ukraine participating in the summit, that the delegation led by President Zelensky will be in The Hague, and it is important for us to just be on that track that Ukraine has the possibility in the future to be part of NATO when they want to achieve that. So these are the main and most important topics, and I hope that we can achieve and keep that unity. So as I see, we have many colleagues already coming, so a couple of questions, and then yeah. Estonia will achieve that in next year. We did that decision basically in 1 week already months ago, that we will go from 3+% to 5+% in 1 year. So it is achievable when you want to achieve it. And again, it's not the question of the percentage only. It's the question of the capabilities, and it's the question of how to reach these capabilities and to be ready to defend ourselves. So this is why I know it's not easy. We had to increase taxes. We had to cut the budget. We had to change many things. But we also understand that 5% during the peacetime is much less than 35% what Ukraine is paying at the moment during the war. Sorry, again.
What do you say to allies about pushing for a later deadline?
Well, again, at the end of the day, we need to find a consensus. We need to find this target, which is achievable for all of us. But nevertheless, we also know that whatever the discussion will be, the capability targets are the ones we will approve today. And when we approve the capability targets, then again, maybe for some countries it is 3.7, maybe for some countries it is 6 or 7%. But the point is that we cannot stay on this level where we are today. And the 5%, what also President Trump mentioned, is the right target. Now, yes, the question is about the timing, but we push for even quicker timeline, because just take what the Chief of Defense of Germany said in last week in Shangri-La. So, thank you very much.
How many additional brigades will NATO have in the end after the new targets?
Well, this is the topic. We will not go in very details, because every country has its own targets. And one thing what we have to keep in mind is that NATO is a collective union, collective organization of defense. And that means that every country has its specific needs. So also when we take also it's not only the brigade, it's the core level, it's the enablers, there are many things, ammunition, so there are many things we need to take care of. So it's let's do not concentrate on each brigade, let's concentrate on all these capabilities we need to achieve. Thank you very much.
Everybody, I'm very excited to be at today's NATO Defense Ministerial meeting. Rest assured, Sweden is very committed for reaching the defense investment plan. We would like to see NATO attaining 5% by 2030, of which 3.5% be dedicated to traditional defense expenditures and 1.5% dedicated to defense-related expenditures. We want an ambitious and forward-leaning defense investment plan due to the deteriorating security environment. We're also going to be focusing today, of course, on the new capability targets that all the allies have been dedicated to. We have made the defense bill in Sweden in December last year, so we are well on track of focusing on some of the deficiencies, so I think are well documented across Europe, being available ground forces, being air defense, or working on replenishing stocks as well. The last point I want to convey is that we're having an important meeting also in regard to Ukraine and the NATO-Ukraine meeting that we're having as well. We are making an announcement today from Sweden that we're dedicating 50 million euros also to the NSATO fund and NATO cap as well. And we are very focused now on front-loading our support to Ukraine so Ukraine can negotiate from a position of strength. I'll be glad to take any question you might have.
Would you like to be defined as defense-related expenditures, infrastructure or a fight against terrorism and migration?
Yeah, listen, I think things like we've been working on quite steadily in Sweden for a long time, I think in civil defense and resilience. I think that's very important in order to have exercise deterrence by denial. I think military mobility is making sure that we have strong transport corridors as well, so we can keep the defense plans executable. We would welcome also a pledge also on strategic partners, particularly Ukraine, which we think is also a defense investment related issue, because supporting Ukraine is really an investment into our own security. So there'll be some of the things that I think would be natural to be included in the 1.5% of defense-related investments.
What does NATO need to achieve?
NATO needs to achieve a strong ability to deter and defend. We take note of Russia right now being bogged down in and around Ukraine. It hasn't been successful so far, but we also know after an armistice or a peace agreement, of course, Russia is going to allocate more forces closer to our vicinity. Therefore, it's extremely important that the alliance use these couple of years now when Russia is delimited by its force postures in and around Ukraine, and also that it has been weakened by the war, that we do an historic build-up on our armed forces. I do want to convey that this is an historic moment for Europe. If we are able to reach 5% by 2030 or 2032, we're going to go up to a defense investment that was at the height of the Cold War, and it's necessary for us to strengthen our ability to deter and defend and continue living in peace.
What's the main task? Spoke with Putin. Has he discussed this conversation with NATO allies in context of preparation for the NATO summit?
Well, I don't know the specifics of that call. I just saw it in the media reporting. What I do find is that the Europeans and the Americans are cooperating closer right now than we were 1 or 2 months ago when it comes to the negotiations surrounding Ukraine. And our focus right now is supporting Ukraine as much as possible so they can negotiate from a position.
Good morning. I really want to welcome Pete Hagseth here at NATO again. You were here in February. You were very clear about the agenda you and President Trump are driving. We heard the message. Today will be an important meeting, because today we will agree on the capability targets we need going forward to keep 1 billion people safe in NATO territory. From this, we will decide at the NATO summit to the spending. And we already know we need to spend much more if we want to fulfill all these targets. And by the way, by doing that, we will also equalize in terms of spending between Canada and Europe and the United States. There has been a total commitment by the US to NATO, but also this expectation that European and Canadian allies will step up spending, and I'm pretty confident we will get there at the summit. I also want to thank you and the President for what you are doing with Ukraine, driving the peace, engaging with President Putin, breaking the deadlock. And I think that is extremely important, and also today we will discuss Ukraine. So, Pete, thank you for being here. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you for being such a staunch ally.
Well, I appreciate it. I want to thank the Secretary General for doing a fantastic job here. Not an easy place to lead. A lot of divergent perspectives, but everybody shares an understanding and a commitment to our collective defense. So, well done. We appreciate you. Thank you for coming to visit the White House, for being a friend of the United States. I also want to thank our ambassador to NATO here, Matt Whitaker, who has done a phenomenal job representing President Trump here and American interests. But nobody has done more, I would argue. And if you just look in plain speak at the commitments and the budgets of NATO countries, then President Trump, to restore NATO as an alliance. He did it in his first term, saying, you know, you can't freeload, you need to spend, you need to be a part of that commitment. European countries stepped up. Now we're seeing even more so, with even higher targets that Ambassador Whitaker and the Secretary General have set. We're talking about capabilities today, and that's important. You got to know what you're spending it on. And then that's going to be reflected, we believe, and the reason I'm here is to make sure every country in NATO understands every shoulder has to be to the plow. Every country has to contribute at that level of 5% as a recognition of the nature of the threat. It can't be about the flags that we love. It has to be about the formations that we have. It's that hard power that actually deters. And it can't just be U.S. capabilities. So the United States is proud to be here, to stand with our allies, but our message is going to continue to be clear. It's deterrence and peace through strength, but it can't be reliance. It cannot and will not be reliance on America. In a world of a lot of threats, where America is poised to help take on those threats. I was just recently in the Indo-Pacific. We were very clear about those threats. We're prepared to step up. We need our allies to step up as well as we stand alongside them. So thank you for helping us have some of those hard conversations, those necessary conversations, and we're going to be talking to all of our allies, as the ambassador has been, that 5% is where we need to be considering the threats we face in the world today. And we'll have that conversation robustly and constructively. So, Secretary General,
thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. You got it.
See you later, guys.
Thank you.
Ukraine be included in the 5% capability spending, as some member states are hoping?
morning, everyone. Today it's important defense ministers meeting, the meeting which takes place before the Hague summit. So it stages up the meeting in the Hague. We will be discussing the important issues, of course, the NATO capability targets. It has been a thorough process of discussion previously, defining those capabilities. Capabilities demonstrate, those targets demonstrate the common threat assessment, that we realize what we are dealing with, that we need to increase our ability to act, ability to react to aggressor countries, including, first of all, of course, Russia. Capability targets include a wide range of spectrum of different capabilities, starting from air defense, maneuverable formations, ammunition, the artillery systems, deep strikes as well, potentially in territory of adversary, of course, also technologies. But capabilities cannot be reached without financial contribution, without financial commitment. So that's why, of course, endorsing capabilities, we have to also endorse the financial commitments, and it is 5%. 5% commitment. Defense and defense-related financial spending is absolutely crucial practically to achieve those goals of capability targets. Last but not least, already we started yesterday with Ukraine Defense Contact Group, today with NATO-Ukraine Council on supporting Ukraine, different formats. Of course, yesterday we also agreed on number of capability coalitions which have been expanded, 10 capability coalitions. Latvia is also co-leading one of them. So that's why, of course, it is important also to move forward with supporting Ukraine. Let's not underestimate what we are dealing with aggressor country Russia, but let's not overestimate. Let's not underestimate ourselves. So we can do many things together in terms of developing those capabilities, in terms of supporting Ukraine, but of course financial spending is absolutely a must. Latvia is committed to capability targets. We understand how important it is to achieve those targets, also to implement practically regional plans, regional defense plans. We already now contribute 3.7% to our defense, and we are willing to move forward towards 5% to defense and defense-related spending. And of course, as I mentioned previously, support for Ukraine is constant. It must be constant. We provide 0.25% from our GDP to supporting Ukraine, and we will be doing this year and also next year.
How quick does it need to go? Why is it not going fast enough?
What is not going fast enough?
Building up the capabilities of NATO.
Well, of course, it takes some time also to assess specific capability targets due to planning as well, so it goes hand in hand in many ways also with regional planning. So that's why, of course, we always would like to have more urgency, more speed up. I agree with also the premise in the question, but at the same time, of course, it requires also thorough assessment, what is exactly needed to be built, so the architecture of those capabilities to implement fully and efficiently those regional plans. So that's why, of course, it is a thorough process, fundamental process, which should also be gone through to achieve those goals. Then, of course, it also very much goes hand in hand with spending as well. So far, 2%. We have ambitious capability targets, so that's why also it requires ambitious spending limits as well.
What's your deadline for reaching the new ambitious level of spending?
Well, the ambition is to start it from next year. So, of course, I would say that it should be needed right now. We've done some progress again. So if you look at 2% commitment, which has been already achieved quite considerably this year, I mean, in comparison to 10 years ago. So, of course, it has been really the progress in this regard, but always it should be more, and the geopolitical situation in the world, our adversaries, of course, first of all, also Russia, but not only, reminds us that the spending is absolutely crucial, but also it goes hand in hand with thorough capability target assessment and implementation, and also go hand in hand with industrial base. It's not just about spending, you need to spend smart and efficient. So it means also industrial base within transatlantic community is also very instrumental in this regard.
For spending more, how do you find the money, and what do you say to voters, to residents that are concerned about government spending more on defence when other things may suffer?
This is absolutely a fundamental question. It's a question also in Latvia, because of course it means that you need to invest more in defence, so where you get the money, where you get the finances. I think there are a number of mechanisms. Of course, first of all, the first fundamental mechanism understanding is that now in a those geopolitical times, as we see right now, challenging times, this is fundamental for all of us. And it's not just fundamental for some frontline countries, it's fundamental for all of us. We are one NATO. The threat to one country means threat to all countries. So that's why common threat assessment is absolutely crucial in this regard. Of course, there is some diversity because of geographical location of previous historical experiences, but this one NATO understanding absolutely must be implemented. Specifically on practical mechanisms, of course, here also NATO must work together with EU as well. And EU has provided a number of mechanisms, for instance, safe mechanisms, common borrowing, common loans, which could be also implemented in defense. It's also about moving the budget deficit, and these times require that actually we are not so disciplined in this case on budget deficit limits. We need to invest more in existential issues such as defense.
Will you insist the word Ukraine is included in the final communique during the summit?
Regardless of the summit, of course, is still, communique must be still decided and agreed up with countries. So, and we must remember that also previously always a formula was when allies agree and conditions allow also NATO membership, of Ukraine's NATO membership. Latvia supports NATO, Ukraine's NATO membership, also EU membership. At the same time, it is still consensus by all member states of NATO and also EU. So that's why, of course, we are willing strongly to underline from our side that Ukraine and support to Ukraine and potential irreversibility, as what was previously included in communiques, have to be on the table, have to be underlined. But at the same time, it is not just about communique, it's about steps forward, practical steps, supporting Ukraine, moving forward, not giving up, saying and clearly understanding that Ukraine will be a NATO member, and I absolutely believe and sure that Ukraine will be a NATO member sooner or later.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Good morning. Bonjour tout le monde. Je suis David McGuinty, le nouveau ministre de la Défense nationale du Canada. Et c'est un privilège d'être ici avec vous au siège de l'OTAN à Bruxelles. Good morning. I'm David McGuinty, Canada's new Minister of National Defence. It's a privilege to be here at NATO headquarters in Brussels. Yesterday, I had the honour of laying a wreath in memory of the Canadian and Commonwealth soldiers who rest at Brussels Town Cemetery. A powerful reminder of the sacrifices that built the peace that we now work to preserve. The alliances forged during the Second World War laid the foundation for NATO. And today, the importance of this alliance has never been clearer and cannot be overstated. Canada's commitment to NATO is unwavering, just as we are in our belief that North American and European security are indivisible. Just 6 weeks ago, Canadians elected a new government with clear marching orders from the Canadian people, established a clear mandate, and our Prime Minister has been unequivocal. Canada will invest in its defences, rebuild its military capacities, and meet the moment with purpose and with urgency. Our government is already very hard at work. There will be more to say very soon as we look to revisit and review our expenditures domestically, continentally, and internationally. We are under no illusions about the scale of the challenges ahead. Russia's unprovoked and brutal war against Ukraine continues to destabilize the global security landscape. China's growing ambitions and increasingly assertive behavior are eroding stability in the Indo-Pacific. And the erratic actions of regimes like North Korea and Iran are undermining the rules-based order we all depend on. In the face of these growing threats, we must all do more. We will all do more. And I'm looking forward to those discussions with my counterparts here today. Thank you. I'd be pleased to take any questions you might have.
Can Canada get to 5%, and how are you going to do it?
Canada is revisiting all of its expenditures presently, from top to bottom. Just recently, our Prime Minister announced a $6 billion new effort to secure our Arctic. Canada's Arctic. So we're working very hard now with our colleagues to implement a series of changes. We'll have much more to say about that financially in very short order.
What's the realistic timeline to reach those 5%?
The realistic timeline right now is to work towards the actual Leaders Summit in the Netherlands. Our Prime Minister will be there. We'll be making announcements in this regard. Stay tuned. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Guten Morgen, meine Damen und Herren. Ich hoffe, Sie haben alle gut geschlafen. Heute ist ein besonderer Tag hier. Normalerweise kommen wir in Brüssel zu diesen Treffen zusammen und verhandeln, beraten, erörtern und diskutieren. Heute ist ein Tag der Entscheidung. Heute ist ein Tag, an dem wir gewissermaßen den Horizont öffnen für das, was vor uns liegt. Ein Tag also, an dem wir als Verteidigungsministerinnen und Verteidigungsminister der NATO die NATO-Fähigkeitsziele beschließen. Die Entscheidungen von heute werden uns bis weit in die Ende der 30er Jahre hinein begleiten, in dem, was wir zu tun haben, in dem, was wir erfüllen müssen. Wir erklären heute, was unsere Teilstreitkräfte künftig können müssen, wie sie ausgestattet sein müssen, damit sie der neuen internationalen Bedrohungslage auch künftig wieder gerecht werden können. Und wir klären eben genau damit auch, wie wir unsere Soldatinnen und Soldaten in den nächsten Jahren ausstatten müssen. Es geht also ganz konkret um Fähigkeiten. Wir entscheiden heute darüber, wie uns zum Beispiel die Luftwaffe künftig noch besser vor Angriffen aus der Luft schützen wird oder wie zum Beispiel die Marine zukünftig angreifende U-Boote noch effizienter abwehren kann. Und für uns, für Deutschland bedeutet das, wir übernehmen traditionell, und das wird nicht anders sein dieses Mal, das zweitgrößte Paket an Fähigkeiten innerhalb der NATO. Und wir kommen, und das haben wir mehrfach betont, unserer Verantwortung nach als stärkster Volkswirtschaft in Europa. Und ich nenne natürlich keine Details aus einem einfachen Grund. Ich würde mir ungern von potenziellen Aggressoren in meine Karten schauen lassen. Deswegen nur ein paar Zielgrößen oder Daumengrößen. Die Großverbände des Heeres, die Korps und Divisionen, vor allem aber unsere Kampfbrigaden, werden wir in den kommenden Jahren voll ausstatten. Wir werden neue Großverbände bilden und voll ausstatten. Und ja, meine Damen und Herren, es ist völlig klar, das macht man nicht so nebenbei. Das wird ein Kraftakt. Deshalb bin ich sehr froh, dass wir in Deutschland schon die wichtigsten Voraussetzungen dafür geschaffen haben. Wir haben unter anderem dafür gesorgt, dass die Beschaffung von Waffen, Munition und Ausrüstung von der Schuldenbremse weitestgehend ausgenommen ist. Das war eine historische Entscheidung oder, wenn Sie so wollen, ein echter Paradigmenwechsel. Die Tragweite dieser Entscheidung ist, glaube ich, immer noch nicht allen klar geworden. Eben aber auch, welche Verantwortung und welche Chance darin liegt. Durch diesen Schritt können wir die Verteidigungsausgaben in den kommenden Jahren Schritt für Schritt erhöhen und entsprechend unserer Beschaffungs- und Ausbauplanung das Geld zielgerichtet und effizient ausgeben. Und um es deutlich zu sagen, das ist der Umkehrschluss daraus, die Zeit, in der wir über die Unterfinanzierung vergangener Jahrzehnte gejammert haben, ist vorbei. Heute fällt der Startschuss, wir holen auf. Wir haben damit begonnen und nehmen jetzt weitere Geschwindigkeit auf. Und das ist dringend notwendig angesichts der Bedrohungslage. Und eben vor dem Hintergrund dieser Bedrohungslage ist ein Signal entscheidend heute. Und das wird von diesem Treffen und vom NATO-Gipfel in Den Haag in wenigen Wochen ausgehen. Die NATO sagt hier ganz klar, zeigt hier ganz klar, wir sind entschlossen. Dankeschön.
Herr Minister, wie viel zusätzliches Personal wird es nach ersten Schätzungen, Prognosen brauchen, um diese neuen Fähigkeitsziele zu erreichen? Und wird das ohne eine Wehrpflicht in Deutschland gehen?
Also wir gehen davon aus, das ist aber auch nur eine Daumengröße, um es klar zu sagen, dass wir rund 50.000 bis 60.000 Soldatinnen und Soldaten in den stehenden Streitkräften mehr brauchen als heute. Und gleichzeitig wird sich die Frage natürlich stellen, reicht der neue Wehrdienst aus über die nächsten Jahre? Wir gehen davon aus, dass synchron zum Aufwuchs der Kapazitäten, und ich kann es immer nur wiederholen, uns nützt eine Wehrpflicht jetzt gar nichts, weil wir die Kapazitäten weder in den Kasernen noch in der Ausbildung haben. Deswegen müssen diese Kapazitäten aufwachsen. Bis dahin gilt Freiwilligkeit. Die Freiwilligkeit kann aber auch darüber hinaustragen, wenn wir als Arbeitgeber attraktiv sind und gleichzeitig mehr Leute gewinnen, junge Männer und junge Frauen, Frauen, die sagen, ich verpflichte mich auch für länger. Das ist das Ziel. Wir werden das jetzt alles auf den Weg bringen und natürlich immer, wie man im Fußball sagt, den Ball eng am Fuß halten und schauen, was passiert und wann müssen wir gegensteuern oder eine andere Richtung einschlagen.
Drohnen in Deutschland zu produzieren?
In den Größenordnungen reden wir nicht, weil wir schlicht über die Einheiten darunter reden. Wie die dann organisiert werden, ist eine andere Frage.
Warum sind Verteidigungsausgaben bis 5% so wichtig und bis wann?
Also die Zahl 5% ist ja vom amerikanischen Präsidenten in den Raum gestellt worden und wird seitdem beständig wiederholt. Wir reden gerade über eine Aufsplittung, 3,5% für reine Kernverteidigung und 1,5% für verteidigungsrelevante Infrastrukturausgaben und anderes. Ich kann nur immer wiederholen, wir können über Prozente reden, aber am Ende sind es die Fähigkeiten, die wir heute festlegen, die entscheiden, was wir zu tun haben. Die müssen wir erfüllen, die müssen wir bereitstellen in der Zeit, die uns dafür gegeben ist, damit zum Zeitpunkt X, dann, wenn eine Gefahr konkret drohen könnte, in der Lage sind, wirksam abzuschrecken und uns zu verteidigen. Das kostet Geld. Und das kann Geld kosten von 3%, 3,5%. Das kann schwanken. Aber auch das wiederhole ich immer wieder gerne. 3% beispielsweise, um mal ein Beispiel zu nennen, bedeutet in Deutschland ungefähr 125 Milliarden Euro pro Jahr. Die müssen aber auch abfließen können. Wenn das Geld nicht abfließen kann, weil die Bestellungen gar nicht so schnell abgewickelt werden können, von der Industrie zum Beispiel, weil es Verzögerungen bei Lieferketten oder anderem gibt, fließt das Geld nicht ab und die 3%-Zahl wäre nicht erreicht. Das heißt, nur die 3% als solche kann Richtgröße sein, die wichtig ist, oder die 3,5. Entscheidend ist aber, dass unsere industriellen Kapazitäten aufwachsen in Europa und darüber hinaus. Und dass wir in Deutschland unsere Hausaufgaben weiter so gut machen wie in den letzten 2,5 Jahren, nämlich die Beschaffung weiter zu beschleunigen und zu deregulieren. Wenn beides zusammenkommt, werden wir die Fähigkeiten in den nächsten Jahren ziel- und plangerecht erfüllen können. Und dann wird das Geld kosten, das es kostet. Und ich vermute mal, dass die 3,5% nicht ganz unrealistisch sein werden.
Was sollte Ihrer Meinung nach zu den verteidigungsrelevanten Ausgaben gezählt werden, also von der Infrastruktur mal abgesehen?
Das wird jetzt in den nächsten Stunden und in den nächsten Wochen bis zum Gipfel definiert werden. Da würde ich mich doch bedeckt halten.
Gibt es Pläne, Drohnen in Deutschland zu produzieren und die Bundeswehr für ihren Einsatz zu schulen?
Ja.
Thank you for your support to Ukraine. How about transfer missiles towers to Ukraine?
I didn't get you.
Towers to Ukraine, what about this?
No, nothing new in that issue.
Aus Ihrer Sicht, Herr Minister, kann es eine Gipfelerklärung geben in 3 Wochen, in der Russland nicht als die größte Bedrohung für das transatlantische Bündnis erwähnt wird?
Das weiß ich nicht. Ich persönlich bin der Auffassung, es sollte klar werden. Andernfalls hätten wir auch ein Erklärungsproblem. Wenn nicht klar ist, von wem wir uns bedroht fühlen, ist es schwer, sich auf diese Bedrohung einzustellen. Von daher plädiere ich für ein klares Signal in diese Richtung. Aber das werden die Staats- und Regierungschefs entscheiden.
Sollte China auch erwähnt werden als sicherheitspolitische Herausforderung?
China ist vor allen Dingen für die Vereinigten Staaten von Amerika natürlich eine besondere Herausforderung im Indo-Pazifik und damit unter internationalen Gesichtspunkten auch für uns. Aber man kann es sicherlich, was die militärische Bedrohungslage jedenfalls für das Kern-NATO-Gebiet, nicht gleichsetzen.
Die Unterstützung der USA für die Ukraine wackelt. Trump wollte Zelensky nicht einladen zu dem Gipfel und jetzt ist er doch eingeladen worden von Rutte. Was für eine Nachricht schickt das?
Ja, man sieht daran, dass sich die Dinge innerhalb ein paar Wochen gründlich verändern können. Das hat mit Sicherheit auch damit zu tun, wie Putin sich verhält, um es deutlich zu sagen. Der komplett fehlende Wille, überhaupt über Frieden ernsthaft zu sprechen oder das Feuer einzustellen, lässt ja tief blicken und kann auch am amerikanischen Präsidenten nicht ohne Eindruck vorbeigehen. Von daher warten wir es ab, was bis zum Gipfel passiert. Ich begrüße die Einladung jedenfalls sehr.
Gibt es irgendwelche Hinweise, Herr Minister, dass in den Beschaffungsskandal über die NATO-Beschaffungsagentur auch deutsche Unternehmen verwickelt sind zum Stand jetzt?
Kann ich im Augenblick nicht sagen. Scheint aber auch ein Fall zu sein, in dem es um persönliche Verfehlungen geht und keine, die in der Struktur der Agentur liegen. Aber das wird sich zeigen. Okay, vielen Dank.
Vielen Dank.
Danke.
Good morning. 2 days ago in the Netherlands, the coalition government collapsed. And I want to stress here at the NATO headquarters that it doesn't mean anything for our defense and for foreign policy. We as a caretaker government decided to act as if we are a regular government and just to continue business as usual, because international threats do not diminish if there are domestic political issues in the Netherlands. So we will continue in the same way, also in preparation for the NATO summit, which I expect is going to be an historic summit. We as a host country want to make this a big success. And we will do all the necessary preparations, of course, to make this summit a success. And the participants will not see or experience anything different, given the fact that we in the Netherlands now have a caretaker government. Of course, today is also going to be important to make sure that the 32 allies get more aligned towards a new defense investment pledge. And I expect that we will make further progress today.
Capability targets are supposed to be for the Netherlands.
Sorry?
What are the capability targets for the Netherlands? Can you go into more details on what you will be focusing?
Of course, I'm not allowed to share any specifics about that, but what we do see in general, of course, is that NATO is requiring more from us because the threat, especially by Russia, is increasing. We made a calculation of what those additional capability targets mean financially for the Netherlands. And if you calculate this, then it means that we should spend, in the medium term, we should spend 3.5% at least on defense, which in the Netherlands means an additional 16 to 19 billion addition to our current budget. And that's what we also shared with Parliament. So this is what NATO is expecting from us. But what we will decide in terms of a new defense investment pledge, a new NATO norm, that's of course a political decision which we will further discuss.
Can you do that as a caretaker government, or do we need to wait for the Netherlands to elect a new government?
Of course, in the short term, we can make a decision on the budget for next year, for 2026. So we will decide whether we will take an additional step to increase our budget. Let's wait and see for that. For the longer term budget decisions, that's up to a new government. But when it comes to taking a decision in 3 weeks in The Hague, whether we can agree or not with a new defense investment pledge, that's a decision that the caretaker government will make.
In your opinion, what should belong to the defense-related expenditures in the future? What kind of? Is it like about infrastructure? Is it about climate change? Is it about migration?
I think the NATO resilience objective are a good starting point. For us as the Netherlands, we are also a transit country. So host nation support is very important. We have big ports. Port of Rotterdam, for example. So in terms of logistics, making sure that we can get military equipment from our ports to the east of Europe, the costs that are involved in this, those are important to us, and I think would also be good to include in the defense-related expenditures. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. We are here today to prepare for the upcoming NATO summit, as well as to agree on our new NATO targets. These new NATO targets are extremely ambitious and will also be challenging for my country as for others, but it's absolutely necessary that we invest in our capabilities. Why? Because we need to be able to continue also in the future to defend our peoples, our countries, and of course also our values. The 2% target, Luxembourg will reach it this year. This is also a very big step for us, but an important step. Beyond the 2%, these are the discussions that are going on now. For us, it's very important that we invest in our capabilities. It will be the capabilities that will keep us safe, not percentages. And with our plans and with our ambitions, this is what should be driving our investments, not the other way around. And these investments need to take place and continue to take place in land, sea, air capabilities, also space, also cyber, and that's exactly what we are doing. Of course, we know that we are faced with challenges, continuous challenges. Investing in our industrial base, we need to ramp it up. We need to invest in our interoperability and also our joint procurement, for example, via NSPA. As far as Ukraine is concerned, we heard from President Zelensky yesterday. We spoke with the defense minister as well. We want and need just and sustainable peace. Ukraine is the first one to want this. Putin could have stopped this war yesterday, can do it today. This is not happening. So Luxembourg will continue to support militarily also Ukraine. We have done so since day one. For this year, we will increase by 50% our military and defense contribution so Ukraine can continue to defend itself. We will continue to be on the right side of history here. Thank you.
So our position is, I think, very obvious. We really need hard investment in defense. Otherwise, we're going to compromise our own reputation. And actually, it's not only about capabilities, but also about perception. If we do not invest into hard defense and do it right now, it's going to get only more expensive in the years to come.
What is part of, there's also discussion about defense-related expenditures. What, according to your opinion, should be part of that?
Well, I agree that infrastructure is important. Expenses related to military mobility, to civil defense, they are, of course, part of the package. But if you do not have strong army, if you do not have weapon systems, if you do not have what it needs to be done to ensure that NATO capability targets are met, and not in the next century, then everything else is redundant.
You mentioned yesterday that 2032 is simply too late a deadline.
Yes.
I'm wondering what reception you got from other allies in the room.
Well, yesterday it was just, informal meetings about that, but today we are going to have a real discussion. So my question to my colleagues is that if we all trust our intelligence, if we trust NATO military intelligence, and they say that it's just a few years until Russia is going to be able to test NATO, then what are we going to do? Ask them for extension? Ask them to delay the deadline? This is not going to happen. So therefore, I'd like to hear the answers. What is then their plan?
But is it realistic to achieve those 5% until 2030?
Well, I think that what we have to all understand, that our actual capabilities, that our ability to defend our territory, to defend our economy, to defend our people is what matters. And I understand that it's very, very different what 5% is for Lithuania or for Estonia and what it is for Germany and for France. Different sort of economies. But also, when we talk about the size of economy, we have to think about the size of impact that is going to happen if Russia breaches our borders. I mean, it's not that only countries on the northern eastern border are going to be violated. It's going to hit very hard all the economies. And what Germany and France are experiencing right now is going to be, I don't know, cherry tree blossom compared to what is going to happen.
Why should countries like Italy or Spain worry about achieving those 5% until 2030 when we see now the slow progress the Russian army is doing in Ukraine? I mean, it will take decades until Spain and Italy might be concerned.
I think it's about 5 minutes additional time that we have when we talk about ballistic missiles, right?
What gaps does NATO have? Can you please explain?
Classified. But I think that we all understand that if we really want to ensure that Russia doesn't even think about breaching our borders, and they will probably expand their empire anyhow, but we turn somewhere else and not at NATO, then, as I said, we have to also see visibly the force that we have. And that means it has to get tougher, both in defense industry capabilities, both in our actual armed forces size, both in the number of different weapon systems that we need to have. And if it doesn't happen in the next couple of years, and God forbid, some interesting decisions would be made regarding sanctions for Russia or negotiations with Ukraine, then we may have not 3 to 5 years, but 2 to 3 years. And then are we going to gather here again and say, okay, we failed a bit, and then maybe we start learning Russian? So, thank you.
defense and deterrence.
So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of NATO defense ministers. The last step on our road to the summit in The Hague in 3 weeks' time. And today we will agree an ambitious new set of capability targets to keep our 1 billion people safe by keeping our deterrence and defense strong. To make NATO a stronger, a fairer and a more lethal alliance. We need to spend more to reach these targets. But for today, the main focus is on the targets. And then, of course, the summit will decide on the spending. But the spending is very much rooted in the targets. And, of course, we also have to produce more to defend ourselves. Much more. So today, we will also prepare the new defense investment plan, which then, of course, NATO leaders will agree in the summit in The Hague. There is no security without strong defense. And there will be no lasting security without a secure Ukraine. So later today, we will welcome Minister Umerov and High Representative Kallas to discuss Ukraine's path to peace and NATO's long-term support. And now I want to thank the media for joining us. I look forward to preparing a successful summit in The Hague. Thank you.